from Sticky Paws Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, it's The Big O Show.
Hi, this is the Big O, Odie Carmona. Welcome. Today we have another amazing guest on the show, and I have to say, I just can't believe that I have another presidential candidate, Gabriel Cornejo. I am so happy that you're here, and I know I pronounced your name right.
You sure did.
I was right on it.
Honestly, that's a tough one for a lot of folks, but
I
I
know.
have no concern with you.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
Gabriel, welcome to the Big O Show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. And now, I was amazed when reading through your All About Us on your page, and we'll put it on later on up there so the folks can see it out. But what made you run for president? What made you, actually, let me go beforehand.
Tell me.
When you were going through school, were you involved in politics? Were you involved in student council? How did you mindset into this?
I will tell you that growing up, I'm the oldest of three boys. My mother is very strong. And the first entrance into any kind of political scene was actually through my high school and city council. There was an opportunity for me to join the city council through what is called the Youth Commission. And I didn't really know anything about it. My mom's like, come on, let's go. You're doing this.
Awesome.
And so there was an application process. There was only 5 of us that actually made it onto the board, just like a standard city council, but it was for youth-oriented issues. And that was where it all started. My interest in politics, though, I just generally am engaged. I've always been interested in how people interact with each other. And of course, now more than ever, seeing what the state of things are in our country, we need people that are leaders in this country to steer us in the right direction, because right now I don't think our country is headed in the best direction.
I totally agree with you. We're disconnected in so many ways that it's almost scary that our democracy was almost in danger. But let's put that to a side. Where did you go to school?
Yeah, I actually went to Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. So that's why I had the facial hair, because we are the lumberjacks. And so I constantly got to represent. And, you know, my best friend who I met, also full beard. If you meet anyone with beards, you can very well guess that they went to Northern Arizona University.
Oh, wow. Or they're a running rebel, because as you can see, George has a full beard over there.
Yeah.
My husband has a full
Yes.
beard. So we running rebels, I guess maybe we might
I'm
be
sure
in the same.
We're associated somehow.
Yeah.
Yep, but that's where I went to school. And actually, I was student hall president there, and I was part of my university's student council as well. So my experience in the political space, I don't have any experience in national, but in terms of leadership, I've had many roles, right? Being the oldest, that's already built into the family dynamic. You're expected to be the leader. I was part of my athletic career. I was team captain of the cross country and track team, and that just continued on throughout my life, having various instances where I started companies and started different divisions for new programs, for something like the Latino engagement team for the Red Cross. It's just one of those things that I've been built around helping others, and this was just the next iteration of how can I improve life. And having the background of being a leader from birth, seems this is what this looks like today.
So what point in your life did you say, I'm going to run for president?
Honestly, it was not my intent to run for president of the United States. The state of our country demands that we have different leadership. The argument that I made was, this year I had 4 family members pass, okay? And it's very unfortunate to have that happen, but it's not uncommon for the average American to have to go through these experiences in life. Well, in our experience this year, with one of my cousins passing, who was the caretaker of my 86-year-old great aunt, we went to go help with the logistics of his memorial and discovered that her house was infested with bed bugs. So we pulled her out immediately and brought her to Las Vegas. Well, during that time, her grandson, who was the last relative in Arizona, he passed.
Oh my gosh.
So as a family, we decided that it was important that we bring her here closer to my grandmother, who lives here, and the reason why I moved here, right? And in doing so, I renovated her home. And this experience is not uncommon like any other average American. But what I knew was that neither Trump nor Biden, who are the leading candidates, were offering solutions to improve lives for the average American. So in this particular case, in this particular moment, I said, look, I could get involved at a local level. And to me, I look at it as that would be plugging a hole in the ship that we're all sinking on. I would rather come in and stop the people that are drilling the holes that are causing us to sink rather than just plugging a hole specifically. Because ultimately, we're all in this together. And if we are starting to see this fracture and separation in society, well, you have to stop those that are in charge who are operating to just improve things for the wealthy rather than the majority of us. So that's why I got involved, because I knew the moment demanded it.
Okay. Wow. That's I feel so sorry for your loss, because all cultures, all people feel a loss. Mm-hmm. But Latinos, somehow we just take it really, really deep, because it's because of them that we're here. It's because of my mom that I'm sitting right here and talking to a presidential candidate. Yeah. So the family system has got to come back. And I agree with everything you say. Now I have another question for you. We're going to touch on immigration. Mm-hmm. Our borders are a mess. Now, mind you, again, when I came in 1967, I was a political refugee. Mm-hmm. So I understand the plight of these people. I understand those parents that are crossing those waters with the kids on their shoulder. I feel for them. Mm-hmm. But there's got to be a better way. One of the things when we came from Cuba is that I think it was Nixon, I believe, who was in presidency in 67, and we were told where to move. Mm-hmm. And once they found us like a Section 8 type thing that maybe we had free rent for a month, within a month, my mom had to find a job, and I had to be enrolled in school. Yeah. And for 3 years, we took 2 buses to get to La Casa de la Libertad on Biscayne Boulevard, the House of Liberty. Yep. So my mom could show them her check stub or a letter from employees saying she's still working, and a letter from my school saying Odie's going to school every day. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I understand that 56 years ago, it was probably a little bit easier to maintain that influx of Cubans that were coming at the time. Yeah. But now it's not just an influx of Cubans coming in during a period. It's the entire world that wants to move into the United States. Right. So how would you fix or repair or, I don't know, policy regulations on the border? Yeah, well, here's where I like to start with this conversation specifically. I'm 41 years old, and you have to think about it this way. Every time there's an election cycle, immigrants seem to be spotlighted, and especially now, right? We see a lot of that happening on all the mainstream medias because it is something that hasn't been resolved in my 41 years' time. And do you think that that's by accident? What ends up happening, especially with politicians, is they use this wedge issue as a way for them to raise donations. And in this moment, we're starting to see the immigrants, the border, be used as pawns in the game that's taking place at the national scale. So we have Donald Trump versus Biden trying to get something accomplished on Biden's end, and Donald Trump saying, no, don't resolve this issue. Well, that's completely disrespectful to the actual human beings who are coming here to America. Either they're seeking opportunity or they're fleeing something, right? So first and foremost, the objective is, from my perspective, yes, if we have secure borders, we have to understand why people are circumventing the legal process, something that I experienced just the other day, and I encourage anybody out there that has the opportunity to go see a naturalized citizen ceremony. It's very inspiring and emotional, and actually reaffirms just how important and valuable our country is, and having the dynamics that we have. Because I had somebody come up and say, you know what, it took me 36 years through the legal process to actually experience what you as a citizen are experiencing now. What ends up happening is people who are seeking opportunity or fleeing something, it's because of the ramifications of our own involvement. I'm going to be very frank. For example, and especially in Latin communities and countries, we've done a lot of disruption to those countries, or we've created conditions to where those countries have had people that are fleeing things and coming here to our country. And that happens all over the world right now, especially our involvement on a military level has created enough disruption that people are fleeing. What we need to do about this is we need to, and I'm going to use a specific phrase, but I will
explain what it means. After World War II, when there was a lot of disruption in Europe, we deployed what is called a Marshall Plan, where we essentially infused money and partnerships with Europe so that way they could get back on their feet. The same objective needs to be done on our part. Is if we want to help our neighbors, and other countries are our neighbors, we want to form alliances and partnerships with them so that way that disruption isn't happening and people aren't just coming here fleeing things. And that's ultimately the easiest way for us to impress upon our neighbors, hey, if we work together, we can break down these constraints that have led to people fleeing, right? Because, and I'll use the example of the cartel. The cartel have a lot of impact and control and devastation on people that are coming through Mexico. And it's unfortunate when you hear the tragedies that immigrants experience on their way to seek asylum. In my own life, my father immigrated from El Salvador. My partner immigrated from Russia. I have my brother who just married a Canadian. I understand how important it is to have a diverse population and how fortunate we are to have this country. But when it comes down to addressing the inequities that have been experienced across the globe, when you have this power dynamic that we're experiencing in our country, where the rich and the powerful are creating so much fracture and friction in their own societies, then people are going to immigrate from some other place. And so the best way forward, and the best thing that we need to do even in our own country, is we need to bring back that balance, so that way there isn't this fraction and this friction that occurs in society. So in order for us to accomplish that, that means partnering with these countries and trying to address those disturbances that lead to mass migration. Because people deserve the right to have happiness. And if we have a part in disrupting that in other countries, we have to also recognize that, because now we're seeing the results of what happens when we've disrupted those countries.
So let me ask you a question. Currently, it's a crisis. Mm-hmm. And the Republicans now do not want to go on the bill that they liked, but mm-hmm. now because Trump said no, then Biden's saying, Biden needs that feather in his hat, and Trump wants him to make sure that he doesn't have that feather in his hat. But the ones that are really paying the price are us.
Yep, of course.
Okay, because the more immigrants that come into our country without being properly processed, that's where our problems come in, and that's where what I call the bad seeds. Mm-hmm. And then those bad seeds start, planting themselves in different parts.
Sure.
What I see, and I'm not an expert by no means, but as a citizen, and I became an American citizen in 1979. Yeah. It was the proudest day of my life to be able to swear to the flag and turn around to my mother and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, of course.
We need, and I don't know how you would work it, but there needs to be a database system or something set up in each of our borders or in each of those countries where those, like in the embassy, where people start putting their applications in.
Right. So
like it was done in the old days, and then somehow, some way communicate to these countries and to these people that are wanting to leave, say, look, this is the way you got to do it. Yeah. If you don't do it this way, you cannot come in.
Right. So exactly. So step one was to try to bring harmonious economic opportunities in the countries of origin, right? But the other piece of that is, because there are people that are seeking asylum. Like I've got some in my own life that have sought asylum even as recent as the Russian-Ukrainian outbreak, right? Mm-hmm. There are definitely reasons for people to do that. But what is going to help also with the influx of people coming through and circumventing the legal system is having our embassies in these countries be a place where people can seek asylum instead of having to make the dangerous trek all the way through, right? And be subjected to all the violence and potential life-threatening situations that come with it. If you have the embassies within those nations and people start to file that process early, then you potentially could resolve a lot of these matters sooner. The other part that we are currently bogged down with on our own structure currently is we've got a backlog of people that need to be processed. And ultimately, under a Cornejo administration, one, you secure the border. Two, you add an influx of judges to expedite this process, because the process takes so long, which is why people are going around the legal system. But more importantly, what ends up happening is a lot of times people talk about this subject from the position of, well, look at the immigrants, they're coming in, they're taking our jobs, right? That's the framing that ultimately gets pushed out there to the public because it evokes fear. But people have to understand, what is the actual power dynamic that takes place? It's not the immigrants that have the power. It's actually the employers that do. And so under my administration, the objective is also to hold employers accountable. And what that looks like to me, and something that I think that conservatives would agree with, often they use the E-Verify system as a way to keep track of who is getting employment. Okay, and that to me is important because you have to make sure that whether it is the employer that is hiring people under the table, which ultimately hurts our labor force, right? It hurts our economy for sure, right? But it also subjects those people that are not being accounted for, because the employers can do and operate however they want with impunity because there's no record of it, right? But under a Cornejo administration, you better believe I'm going to hold the employers accountable, because ultimately what it does is it also dilutes the labor market for our legal Americans, right? And so that's why this has to be rectified, not just from the immigrants' advantage, but also from the employer's advantage, because you have to hold the powerful, in that case, accountable. So if we are going to operate as patriots, which is often the verbiage that goes along with the Conservative Party, well, what's more patriotic than keeping the labor force and having the employers be held accountable just like we would want the powerful held accountable? So that's where, from my vantage as Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States, is not just look at the immigrants. It's let's assess our own involvement in what this power dynamic looks like and how to bring balance back to it. Because right now it's only a cudgel that is used in society, and it happens every single election cycle. And ultimately, this is something that can be solved. And I wholeheartedly believe that. In my own experience, having created a whole new division for the American Red Cross, the Latino engagement team, I've done this, where I've helped create solutions in a very quick manner under very dire circumstances. This is why I think that it's important to have somebody who actually actively has this experience, who's going to come in and make these changes happen for us, because I know how important it is.
Definitely. I like that. That's good. Now, I'm going to bring you on to another one, which is
Please.
one of my favorite. Inflation. Gasoline prices.
Cost of everything.
$4.99 for a bread. And now it's not even a brand name bread.
Right.
It's the generic brand of a bread.
Right.
Okay. So what are you looking at to take a look at alleviating some of this pain for, not everyone makes six figures. Mm-hmm. Okay. In my 27 years, I met very few people that made six figures.
Sure.
Okay. How are you looking at handling inflation, home prices, rent prices? Let's talk a little bit and take it in pieces if you like.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of put this all out on the table. So here's part of the reason why I'm in this race, right? Biden will tout till the cows come home Bidenomics, and they use metrics that sound great. We have low unemployment, and look at the job creation. But what does that actually mean to the average American? Because I'm the average American, we are the average Americans, and you can tell us that we're doing fine and the house is on fire, but ultimately our reality is not that. And so the vantage that I see this situation where everything is so expensive, you have to address a couple of different components. One, we've allowed our corporations to form monopolies and ultimately garner so much market share that they have control over pricing. And so what happens is there is now what they call greedflation or shrinkflation, which simply means price gouging. That's basically what that translates to, right? Where ultimately we work with the free market principles, where what the market can bear is the talking point of the conservatives. They'll say, well, don't interfere with the free market. But that argument is fair if you have an efficient market. What we have right now is we have a duopoly, a crony capitalism, which simply means that there are so few competitors in various markets that they control the pricing of markets. And ultimately what that does is it makes it so it's so expensive that we have no pushback because there's no competition. There's no counter to Amazon, right? Even though that was something I spent 7 years trying to produce, was a competitive result against Amazon, because I knew that Amazon was going to swallow all the mom and pop shops that were struggling already. And so something that needs to happen is you need to have somebody at the top of the ticket who's willing to point these out and then also willing to break them up, because that's the way you are able to create a fair market so that price competition will continue. We don't have that. The other piece of the inflation argument is often people reference, well, we saw during the pandemic there was
logistics.
Right. Well, you had the supply chain that got affected, but people are using the argument, and I'll tie it back to what my solution is, that because we gave people money, that caused inflation. Well, truth be told, giving people money is one of my policies. It's called the universal basic income. I'm using the exact same talking point as Andrew said, who was a presidential candidate in 2020. He used the phrase freedom dividend. And so that's on my platform. It's actually my number 3 policy that I'm interested in getting implemented. And what that means is actually my intent is every American that's 18 years old and up getting $1,000 a month. Okay. And I use that example by tying it with the game Monopoly. Have you ever played Monopoly? Okay. You know the $200 you collect every time you pass go?
Right.
That's intended to keep you active in the game. And I want you, the average
be
American,
active
to
in
be
life.
active in life. Right. And the way that you solve your own problems is you have to have the ability to have your basic needs met and have your head above water. Right now, the average American experience is living paycheck to paycheck. How can we do anything other than just survive if we never have that opportunity? Well, given that I know that we have monopolizations, and that's going to take time for me to deconstruct, right? How can I best serve the needs of the many? Guess what? A cash infusion of $1,000 a month gives you, the average American, the ability to deploy it however you need to, right? If you want to go pursue education, $1,000 is going to help. If you want to go start a business, $1,000 is definitely going to help, because you're able to mitigate your risks, right? If you just
got to pay the utilities, or if you've got to pay or buy diapers, you're a young parent and, you didn't use safe sex or whatever the case may be. Or if you live in Texas, you're really up a creek without a paddle.
Right.
You will have to buy diapers at 18.
I mean, we know that people are just barely getting by, right? So how do I, as quickly as possible, alleviate that? Because the market's going to take time to unravel, right? The monopolies that exist. That's a slow process. Restructuring our tax brackets. Well, not just the brackets, but even how we deploy the tax structure, but who we tax and what that looks like will take time as well. But ultimately, what'll end up happening is we are also up against the AI revolution, because there's going to be a lot of displacement of people's jobs that come on the back of all of these other inequities that we're experiencing. So the freedom dividend, the $1,000 a month, is the quickest way for us to ensure that people are able to have their basic needs met while we make things whole
While they
again.
kind of go through the road of life.
That's right.
Okay. You talked about a lot of people being displaced during AI, and that would bring me to my next question,
Sure.
is education.
Yeah.
Our education system suffered tremendously. Every state is not meeting standards due to the fact of COVID.
Yep.
It was very difficult for students to go from classroom, and even teachers themselves, to develop a whole curriculum online, which you really never did.
Yeah.
We have 4th graders, 5th graders that are not at the reading level. We have high schoolers that are not at the reading level. How would you address our educational system as far as trying to get our students back to par and back to where we should be? And then I'll double up on a second question after that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, definitely during the pandemic, what we saw were people trying to form pods. Basically, there were groups of people that were saying, okay, I can control who's in my group, and then we'll work collaboratively amongst just a handful of students. And the detriment that comes with doing things online, and this is something that I explained even when I founded my first company, which was devoted to educational space, was the importance of school is not just in the materials that you learn, it's actually in the interaction with others, right? That piece was sacrificed, unfortunately, during the pandemic. So providing resources back to society. What we've experienced, because I've got a lot of teachers in my life, and a lot of teachers are feeling overworked and underpaid and underappreciated. Part of the challenge that I express and why this is an economic issue is because the mom and dads that have children that are left behind at this particular juncture, they're working longer than ever, right? Multiple jobs. How can they engage with their children and bring them back up to speed? That's why it's important to create the conditions to address the economic disparity, so that way those that are at home can devote more time and or have programs in our society to address those that were left behind. Unfortunately, as we're currently constructed, that's not going to be discussed because we've got a lot of needs happening at the same
Pressing
time.
issues that are going to have to take priority over
Right.
education right
So
now.
even if I wanted to implement a new program, until we address the economic suppression that we have and the despair that we're feeling, can we never free up the parents who are also going to be needed to bring things back to a state where children can have the environment of learning again? Because we've got children that are going hungry. We've got children that aren't able to pay attention because either they're deprived of sleep or whatever that may be, because parents are having to make sacrifices by working multiple jobs, and who knows what that actual human experience is on the child. That despair is internalized by children. I don't care who you are. Like, I know that when my parents were stressed as a child, I felt it. Thankfully, I was able to overcome it by having my grandparents in my life who could help me when I was deprived of my parents because they were working. That's where it's important to address the conditions to have family involved, because it's not just a silver solution. Like, I don't have the perfect solution at this moment, but I do know that we need to address the economic challenges in order to create the conditions for families to be able to have their contribution and the educational deprivation that have come as a result of the structures we have in place now. I hope that
Yeah, no, this
makes
comes
sense.
to my second question. Now I'm going into the high school level. There's a lot of youth disconnected between the ages of 18 and 24, I think it was, that I read the last time from some report, I don't know, Department of Labor or one of those. But either way, I'm a big believer that if you're not going to go to school, you need to go to work.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I see in our educational system is that workforce readiness is nowhere near. I've been a preacher. I've been preaching workforce readiness ever since I can remember, because I started working at 14. So I knew the importance. It taught me how to be on time, how to make sure that I was responsible, and I was able to say I finished this work, report this many hours. I was just talking to George and one of the other engineers. They go, well, I said, I was making big bucks when I was making $5.75 an hour at 18 at Ava's Rent-A-Car.
Sure.
That was huge money.
Yeah.
Okay, this is 1979.
Yeah.
But it's not 1979 anymore. And these kids in school, in high school, we need to prepare them. And one of the things that I like to see done, hopefully in your administration, is that you start looking at education and workforce readiness to marry them, because they're both part of what a young person needs in order to know about life.
Yeah, sure. Well, something that I haven't disclosed yet here is I've lived in 11 cities in 2 countries, the other country being Canada. So there are a lot of programs that I've bear witness to in my time in Canada. One of the things that they are doing right, and especially post high school, they have this line of university and college. They are 2 distinguishing differences. College is mostly trades, right? So where you actually get to apply your education in real time, right? The same thing with university. What they've done to try to get that readiness is you're getting the theory that comes with the coursework and the classes you're taking. But part of that experience is, okay, you're taking these classes, now you have to go actually into work for a company in that industry so that you can apply it right away.
An internship.
Exactly. And it's required as part of your certification, right? Because it's important that we are not only just giving people theory, because theory only takes you so far, right? But being able to align with those that are actually in the
Practicing
industry.
theory.
there's a couple of different benefits to it. And this is part of my experience when I founded this company for college students. I used to go around and give speeches and say, I encourage you to get an internship, and from my vantage, get one that's free, that they don't pay you. And the reason why, this is where it's important to me. If you're in there and you find that you are enjoying it and you're not being paid for it, then you know you're in the right place. Because if you're not getting paid for it, you'll figure out right away, this is not for me. And what that does is it pushes you towards a direction that is going to hopefully lead you into a direction that's fulfilling, right? The value of and discovering that it's sooner is so much more valuable than just the pay. Because if you're getting paid and maybe you're just enjoying getting paid rather than actually enjoying the line of work that you are pursuing. And in university, it's very often that you have an idea that you think you will find fulfillment with. But if you have to wait until after you're done with school and to actually figure that out, you've wasted a lot of time and effort just to get that answer. And that's why I think it's important, and I admire Canada and how they have things structured, because getting that experience, firsthand experience, even at a very early
in the high
stage,
school level.
Even at the high school level, I know from my own experience, there were programs, it wasn't necessarily available to everybody. We had to seek them out.
Right.
But the sooner you can get these answers, right, getting clarification about what you truly enjoy and why, that would be so important. I know that for myself, I worked throughout my high school career, even when I was an honors student, even when I was team captain, right, and being busy, right, I valued it. I would love to have discovered what I would find fulfilling sooner. Had that opportunity existed, I would have relished the opportunity. I know that if it wasn't of my own decision, I definitely know my mom would have compelled me to go get that answer, right? But these are the things that we are definitely lacking, right? Because there's only so much that you can learn from a book. But when it comes down to
hands-on,
my own experience, finding out for yourself as quickly as possible will give you clarity about whether or not this is the right decision for your own life.
Wow, that's a great analogy. Now, Gabriel, we're just about finishing up here, and I just want to say thank you. I appreciate meeting you, and I really enjoyed our conversations. Is there anything you want to tell the viewers out there as far as definitely go out and vote?
Yes. So today is Election Day in Nevada, and if you're viewing outside of Nevada, I'm on the ballot across the country, so hopefully I'll be coming here to your state soon to share the message. I've lived in 11 cities, 2 countries. I've been white-collared, blue-collared, no-collared. The strength that I possess is because of living in all these places. What I've found is people care about the well-being of their friends, their family, and their community. And so my administration, my campaign goal is to create conditions that prioritize our families and our communities. I don't hear that message being communicated from Biden or Trump. Ultimately, my perspective is they're corrupt. They've been paid and bribed to make things comfortable for the wealthy. But it's time right now that we address those inequities, because we are starting to see what'll happen is if we don't, those pitchforks are coming. And that's not the society that I want. And I don't want to see the demise of our democracy, which I think is actually on the line, truthfully. And I don't say that with callousness. I do believe that Donald Trump is an existential threat to the country that we have. And I intend to see that we, the average Americans, are addressed by having our basic needs met at the very least, because I'm very interested in getting universal health care. That's something that I have had my own experience around, having been in a near-fatal car accident in 2011. And ever since that moment, all I've been working towards is trying to create our communities to have the opportunity for people to find fulfillment. And that's it. Because I know that we are not promised tomorrow. So I want people to have the opportunity to have more than just surviving paycheck to paycheck. I want people to experience the life when they're thriving.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Me encanta el mensaje que has mandado para los que hablan español, es latino, así que ya los veremos en el ballot. Y si Dios quiere, te veremos en el White House, Gabriel.
Oh, yes, I would love that. And you would be on my guest list as soon as I'm there.
I would appreciate getting my grandkids getting a tour.
Of course. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
No worries, Gabriel. Whenever you're in town, let us know. Whatever we can help with and assist, let us know.
Yes, my Nevada neighbors, get to the polls.
Yes.
Get to the polls. Today's the
Go
day.
vote.
Go
Rain,
vote.
hail, storm, whatever.
That's
Get out
right.
to the vote. All right. Gracias, Gabriel.
Gracias por todo.
All right. Ori Carmona. Thank you.